I feel so lucky to have played Demon's Souls when it first came out. There was only one author called Miyazaki. It would be 7 years before I obnoxiously argued with strangers on the internet about difficulty. The European release wasn't even out yet. And there I was, unknowingly partaking in the birth of one of the most influential and soon-to-be critically acclaimed genres of all time. The Forgotten Firstborn, though understandably written off as dated by those who have already played its shinier brethren, I can't escape viewing it through those fresh eyes of its fanfareless release. Coming back to it, I'm overwhelmed by its ability to wordlessly teach new players about its brutally unforgiving gameplay. More than any other developer, From Software's games are a conversation between creator and audience. They teach you about themselves and their design, not with overbearing hand-holding tutorials, but with the gameplay itself. Rather than allowing players to stumble through even by mashing buttons, if you refuse to learn from your mistakes and listen to what the game is telling you, you can never succeed. Bolitarian Palace, or Demon's Souls' enforced first level following its unfailable tutorial, is a showcase in perfected level design and tutorialization in the same vein as Doom's E1M1, Mario's 1-1, or Half-Life's Tram Ride. We enter the level facing forwards towards a large gate. The stairs leading upward have a clear pathway to it, with a couple of enemies at the top, although our vision of the sides is obscured by wooden barricades, smoky fires, and debris. We run forward, our eyes are drawn towards the item on the floor in front of us. Upon picking it up, we are ambushed by an enemy hiding behind a barricade. While reflecting on what the game is trying to tell us, we are ambushed again from an enemy previously off screen. The game has informed us to expect not just some trickery, but layers of it. Items are bait for traps, and obvious traps are bait for bigger and more dangerous ones. Next, we follow the direction we were just ambushed from, an unnoticed offshoot from the main path. Going down there, we see a whole mess of shinies in the distance, and notice that they are behind a locked door. We are rewarded with the knowledge of those items' existence for our exploration, but no items themselves. We are taught to expect secrets, and that we should and perhaps will return to earlier areas later on in the game. Within 30 seconds, Demon's Souls has provided us with a pretty decent vertical slice of the level design ideas and gameplay philosophy that will continue to ripple out through not only the rest of the game, but through From Software's continuing releases to their inevitable domination of world markets. If we are really top of our class, at this point we will turn round with secrets and exploration branded into our hearts, and check behind the place where we first started, to be rewarded with some top shelf grass. To highlight just how unchanging these wordless archetypal lessons are, if you're a Souls veteran, this is probably the very first thing you do. As we push on, we are ambushed again. The ambush is another item bait, reinforcing the idea and challenging us to prove we have understood. The game then takes ambushes away. A headcrab in every vent is boring. A headcrab in a fifth of vents is terrifying. Next we have two enemies together, a much more difficult encounter than one alone, as their AI doesn't force them to take turns attacking. Not only that, but we are ambushed from further away whilst dealing with them. Crowd control is important, and even the weakest enemies can be deadly if we aren't aware. This is where I personally died the first time I played. There are two more enemies at the top of the stairs which have been visible all along, and then two more behind barricades next to the gate. These aren't much of a challenge if we mastered the previous encounters, but the extra repetition of this single enemy type lets us know that the attack patterns of visually similar enemies are always the same. Each one of these dredgelings will run and lunge at the player, pause, and then swing their sword violently. A freakishly powerful attack for the first real enemy of a game, but one that can be easily dealt with if it is remembered. We head to the right following from the final enemy and come to a locked gate with holes in. We can't see anything through it. An enterprising fellow might think of the earlier gate and suggest that we can get here at some point, but he wouldn't be sure. We try the main gate, which looks unopenable, and see an enemy waiting up a set of stairs. Instead of fighting in the open, we must now contend with another step in the Souls trademark fuckers level design. This rotten creep is not only above us, but in a narrow corridor. Obviously, we learn here to patiently aggro enemies to a safer level playing field. Immediately following this, we see an item, not just behind, but between two separate gates. Gates of an exact match to the ones we just inspected. An item behind a gate signifies we will reach that place. An item between two gates signifies they must be opened. The game doesn't waste time in letting us guess its shortcuts. This item is a statement of intent. We will be coming back here. It is under 2 minutes since we warped here, and Demon Souls has already presented the foundational aspects of Souls game and level design philosophies, while beginning to demonstrate in what ways it will build on those ideas, how it will reward players that pay attention, whether they realize it or not, and ruthlessly punish those who don't, all without a single text box or forced interaction. It is such a comprehensive beginning that much of what follows in even this first level can be said to be derivative of these opening moments. Like the skilled artist, the designers have begun by laying out their tools before us for inspection, and now they are going to have some fun with them. Immediately heading round the corner from the gate, we are forced into another narrow corridor. At its narrowest point, we are shot with a crossbow, and we can either duck behind the makeshift cover and learn to use the level design to our advantage, block with our shield, or roll through it. As we approach the scaffolding our assailant has perched himself upon to take our revenge, we realize it is only accessible from the rear, and adding to this, it is protected by 2 more jumping slaves, with a pit in the ground nearby. If you weren't pissed off by the purposely obnoxious encounter design before now, your time has come. From Software's continuing bread and butter, introduced to a new enemy with this ranged bastard man, he is placed in the very most infuriating way he could be, close enough to unleash his barrage, but unreachable, taunting us with the shiny at his feet. There is no easy solution. Kiting the enemies backwards is safe but laborious. Fighting them in this area leaves us wide open to fire and the horrors of the pit, and going straight for the sniper means dodging past the melee men. This encounter demands more attentiveness and mastery than most games' final bosses. If we resisted the urge to jump into the glowing pit of death and aren't sent back to the beginning of the level, we are ambushed from the side in the next completely dark room because this game hates us, and we must be alert at all times. We get some practice fighting in pitch black and cramped rooms and move on. There is a shiny in between some wooden scenery. If we didn't learn it in the tiny murder room we just left, we learned here that wooden stuff can be broken by us. The item is a firebomb, giving us the first subtle hint that maybe consumables, and especially fire, are going to be useful here. We go up the stairs and round the corner and are ambushed by 2 new enemies. Their visual design screams that they are stronger than the naked madmen we have fought before now. Even their attack patterns tell us they're more in control of themselves. Just like the crossbow man, we do not get introduced to them gently. They almost killed me. No matter how much you love Souls games, you must always stay on your toes. We cross a fog gate into another room. There are some shinies on the bottom floor, and a satirically narrow staircase leading upwards. As we climb the staircase, we eat a Molotov cocktail. Maybe we reason that this is the firebomb that we just picked up. Possibly we are smart enough to use our shield. If we are, we realize that shields do not block fire damage as well as physical damage. We climb further and see a wretch wielding an inflamed sword. Even if we don't take damage, with our game player's attention hat on, we understand that fire makes this heretofore familiar enemy more dangerous. We climb even further and go for seconds of firebomb just because we have been playing too well, and we really need to demonstrate that this game is demanding our attention. From the very first encounter, we were told to expect more where that came from, and here, firebombs follow firebombs. If you've ever played a Souls game, it should go without saying that as a first-time player, every one of these encounters can and possibly should kill us. Each lesson hammered home all the greater for it. Up and up and we see a firebomb thrown in front of us from behind, intentionally missing. Its exporter is unreachable to most starter classes, and so we must take on the next encounter without luring out. 2 flame-enriched hobos in the narrowest of corridors, and an unseen second bomb chucker just in case we try to escape. Continuing onwards, we see a shiny within a wall of wood. It cannot be reached. There is also a shiny on the wooden platform above us. It cannot be reached. We turn left and head out to the side of the wall. We get a lovely view of the path we have taken and a chance to admire the scenery and be attacked at the very narrowest point, and consequently roll right off the edge. As we reach the top of this incline, we see another unreachable item on a battlement across the way. We get doubly ambushed in the doorway and almost die. just in case we thought this precipice was too easy, then enter inside. With narrowness in its heart, the game then forces us up another set of stairs, and this time sends a defensive boulder down towards us. A crash behind us makes us look round, and we realise that the wooden case shiny has been freed. Following it, we get a new weapon, the bastard sword. We stick with the rapier and head back up to get some more grass. Coming up the stairs for the second time, we encounter my favourite and most rubbing your hands together evil level design thus far. While fighting the boulder roller at the top of these narrow stairs, we are shot in the back by some dastardly coward. Instead of continuing forward towards the fog gate, we turn round to have our revenge. We easily slay him, but in doing so, we are shot in the back again by some even bigger coward. When we turn to face this heinous insult, the man cowers behind his spear-wielding friend, taking potshots at us the entire time and unreachable due to some mislaid siege weaponry. We use the same defense to our advantage and deal with this new totally bullshit spear guy, kill the back shooter, claim some grass as our reward, and feel victorious. Even guarded with affirmations that everything this game pushes upon us is in our worst interests with its tricksy hobbit's approach to game design, we still fall so easily for the obvious trap. The way one crossbowman is clearly drawing us back as far as possible, and then from that distance another draws us right to the edge of the wall. The awkward level design and shiny grass keeping our attention firmly away from the direction of progress. We assume the trap is over, and without thinking how we have been eerily led astray, we explore the room beyond. It is empty. Through the exit at the other end of the room, we see a glowing red-eyes black dragon guarding a shiny. This enemy is obviously strong. This enemy is far away. For the first time, the game blatantly gives us the option of refusing to engage with an enemy and take a different path. If we test our luck, even if we just run for the shiny, we will die here. As a Souls veteran, I die here. This guy is jokingly powerful, like laughably one-hit kill too strong for us. Even if you just go in for a look, this guy will chase you down unless you use Joseph's secret technique. The game imperceptibly drags us all the way over here in the wrong direction, just to teach us that there are some places you really shouldn't go.
I love it.
Those with a knack for 3D spaces who have internalized Demon Souls' layered vertical level design and triangulated their relative position on their jaunt outside the wall will surmise the shortcut we seek was in front of us as we climbed the stairs. Even without ungodly spatial awareness, I know the shortcut is that way because I wrote this after already playing the game. The deeply precious symbol of concrete progress in a gameplay loop built around setbacks is within our grasp. Its closeness really sticks the boot in on that whole red-eyed knight thing. We head towards the fog door and face a blue-eyed knight. The chances of him killing us are very high, but at least he's actually meant to be beaten. We remember the shiny from when we were outside the wall and drop down the ledge. We are rewarded with a crossbow and make our way back up. A torch draws our eye to another tower, and assuming the fog gate takes us further into the level, we decide to explore the tower first. It's pitch black in here, and the firebombs in the corner of the room give us the first hint at the lesson of this section. We head down the stairs and witness a Souls game's version of a set piece. Instead of attacking us, our friendly flame wielders lunge straight into a barrel, setting off an explosion and killing themselves. Being a slave mustn't have been as fun as the advert made it seem. As we pass the barrel, we notice it has red stripes, although if we have played a video game before, we already knew that. Heading downwards, we come to a wooden balcony. There is nothing on this balcony but taut metal chains. We break the chains because we've played this game before and continue downwards dealing with the flame boys on the way until we reach the bottom. At the bottom, 5 separate fire slaves wait on the narrow stairs in a big group surrounded by explosive barrels. The game wants to kill us right at the final hurdle. We are almost certainly expected to throw one of the firebombs we have down there. But we don't because no one ever uses consumable items in video games. We pull the lever at the bottom of the stairs and feel the rush of serotonin as we make our first real progress in the game. Even without it, reaching this point is proof we have what it takes to beat the entire Souls catalogue. We get the Cling Ring, one of the best items in the game, and an armor set and a totally not depressing hair ornament and feel pretty good about ourselves. Intentionality is a word that always comes to my mind when I play video games. Unlike the real world, each enemy, each item, each piece of furniture or wall of text must be specifically put where it is with purpose. In most games, these feel almost random, with the failsafe that an NPC can just explain it all. But I hope this detailed analysis shows that in a great video game, intentionality can be leveraged to create a compelling, efficient, and immersion-preserving experience. In less than 10 minutes since we started, Demon's Souls has taught us as much about its combat and level design as we will probably ever need to know without a single line of dialogue or helpful text prompt. More than that, in teaching the player to actively learn by themselves, pay attention to their surroundings, and use their brain, it has created a player that can grow to deal with anything, and not one that relies on minute instruction. I could go on in this same detail for the entire game, but I don't want this video to be 10 hours long. Even if I did, the whole point is that we already know it's traps within traps within traps, so in true Souls fashion I'll just rush to the boss. Beyond the fog gate is a thesis on firebombs, with crossbow bastards on a scaffold defended by a blue-eyed knight for good measure. We stop and chat with beautiful poster boy / political litmus test badass knight / pampered son Ostrava.
I'd give an arm just for the buttons off his shirt.
We get to unleash a trap of our own, preferably not on ourselves. We abuse the AI of a dragon to deal with a ridiculous bridge encounter and get some cool items. Then we continue our part-time job as a lever puller and open the big gate at the beginning of the game. After that we get a nice little turpentine hidden behind some boxes. And after descending into the tower and dealing with some expected enemies, we get the final lesson. In the darkness, on a narrow gallery, we find a blob of oily matter with a shield for a face throwing spears at us. Its texture alone makes it clear that this is the enemy we have been saving our firebombs for, although as we started royalty we use magic instead. Either way, every part of its design and placement suggests frontal physical attacks will be useless here. Our sword bounces off their shielded visage, and the exposed behind is made inaccessible by this game's obsession with narrow walkways. We continue further down and fight another, this time making a point not to use magic right away, and on an even lower level, we can finally get behind one and try it out that way. This enemy is a hoplite, which we are given a taster of before we fight a boss made of them. I think Phalanx is a shitty boss, but it does try to teach players about elemental damage and weakness, getting around shields, and to a certain extent even the difference between slash, thrust and blunt damage, an idea that is front and center in 2.1, and something that even modern Souls games basically don't do at all. Released into an indifferent world, Demon's Souls is deafening in its announcement of a completely new experience, already fully formed and steadfast in its intentions. Its ballsy subversion to respect the intelligence of its players so risky that From Software lied to Sony about its mechanics. This opening level speaks to my heart in a way no game has managed to since. The birth of a new genre, right before my eyes. Every moment a perfect crystallization of ideas whose influence on the industry is continually growing even a decade later. Its significance is so overwhelming that I can only discuss it by analyzing it in minute detail, hoping to give it a fraction of the treatment it deserves. Its quiet, forlorn atmosphere strongly reinforced by its brutally unforgiving and wordlessly clear tutorialization of its gameplay. Ludonarrative perfection. Demon's Souls is being lost in a thick fog, only to see a path created by a traveler we will never meet. Feeling hopeless, only to realize we had what it takes inside us all along. Though it seems like this game hates us, it has been cheering us on from the start. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. Peace. I hope that's alright.